to defend the family name, Donna. Man, that's great.
Now who's the better Labonte?
She didn't become a winner overnight without a lot of practice. So if you've been playing Papyrus's NASCAR Racing 2, you'll know how tough it is. So in this video, we're going to try to give you some help. We'll cover some topics like driving basics, car setup, race strategy, and multiplayer. And hopefully, you'll not only drive faster, but hey, win some races as well. Let's start with the basics. The first thing I want to talk about is a driving setup. You know, you'll want to go out there on the racetrack, and if you're not running fast, you'll want to come back and change your car setup. Well, let me tell you something. You need to make sure that your driving style is just right. You need to be smooth, and you need to be consistent. You can practice setups all the time, but you need to practice your driving style. So let's go and get into a setup that's comfortable for you, and then let's go practice our driving style. Now, on the car setup sheet, you have Ace, Easy, and Fast to choose from for a practice mode, okay? Well, Ace is for the more experienced driver. Easy is for the newcomers that this might be their first time racing. So let's pick a setup and go out on the racetrack and let's practice. Now, you'll see this is Richmond Speedway. In this place, you really have to be smooth and you have to be consistent here. You've got a lot of elements here. You got to hit the brake, you got to use the gas easy, you got to be real smooth. So I picked this racetrack to start with, so let's get some good laps in. You'll notice the speed display on the left-hand side shows the gear and the miles per hour. Now, I use it for reference because a lot of times what you'll see in the corners, you'll see a certain speed that you might want to maintain. And if you know that's a good lap, then you know the next time by you want to keep that same lap or try to get better. Some basic driving techniques at any racetrack: staying low in the corners, driving out to the walls on the straightaways. Here at Richmond, use a lot of brake, back on the gas. Now also what we've installed is some telemetry on your screen to show where I'm getting off the gas, on the brake, and back on the gas. So hopefully that'll help you when you're racing. Don't be afraid to try different lines, because you know it takes some practice to get comfortable with this car. For racetracks that you use a lot of braking or braking at all, you might want to get off the gas a little soon, on the brake hard, get the car set, back on the gas as quick as possible. And I'll tell you one thing I also learned. You need to come off the corner as low as you can, because that really seems to accelerate the car off the corners. Many racetracks, when you start off, that you're not used to, if you see signage or something like that on the side of the walls, and you know that you can't go any further than this to get on the brakes and off the gas, use those for reference points. I use them on a real race car, so why not use them in the game too? Experiment with it. You can go a little further in the corner and try that. Now, one thing that you see is the black skid marks around the racetrack. This is a good way to tell that if you're in the groove or not. As it's displayed, this is the preferred groove for the computer. On the steering wheel, I'm not doing anything crazy with it. I'm just steering the car easy, smooth, off the corner, out to the wall. You know, I'm not sitting here doing this. You'll never go fast doing it that way. Now, one thing I want to mention too is that not just at Richmond, but a lot of racetracks you go to, the harder you enter the corner, the more messed up you might be exiting the corner. So why don't you try backing off a little bit, apply a little brake a little sooner, get the car set, step on the gas. If you can stand on the gas a lot sooner and drive off without hitting the wall, without going too low, in the preferred groove, you'll probably be going faster. Now let's go back to the pits, and I want to show you something about the new wheel spin that they have in NASCAR 2. And a way to do that is hit Shift R. Now let's go to an overhead view so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, wheel spin. Here's a good display of it. Now in real life, when you accelerate too much, you'll have wheel spin. And if you're in a jam, say trying to get out of the pits, saying you're on the racetrack and you're involved in a spin and you're trying to get back on the racetrack, you can see what you can do. You can do 360s with it. Well, this really helps out if you are, because on a short track like Bristol or Martinsville or North Wilkesboro, if you get caught, spun out, you'll lose a lap in a heartbeat. So this is a good thing to practice because it takes a while to get used to it. Because on the start of races, if you are in a bind, you need to make sure you keep the steering wheel straight if you need to go straight. But if you have to, turn the wheel to get out of a jam. This is a feature that really is used on the real race cars too. And when you apply 740 horsepower to a race car, you'll have wheel spin, trust me. One key thing that you need to remember is to keep practicing. You know, I don't expect you to go out there and start off fast, but if you want to get fast, you need to learn your reference points, start off slow, get in there easy, look at your lap times on the screen and say, okay, am I getting better or not? Start off going in the corner harder, more brake, less brake, stay lower. Work in that area of the groove that was shown earlier, and you'll see that you'll be flying around this racetrack before long. The next section I want to talk about is car setup. Now, there's a lot of difference between NASCAR 1 and NASCAR 2. For instance, the first thing you'll notice is there's no way to adjust the stagger in NASCAR 2. There's no way to adjust the fuel load in NASCAR 2, and there's no way to adjust the front air dam. Well, let me tell you, I mean, it might seem odd for you, but that's the way we do it on the NASCAR racetrack. We don't have those adjustments, so this is a lot more realistic to the NASCAR racing, so that's what we need to stay with. Another thing you might want to think about is, in your NASCAR 1 setups, you might try a couple of them of your best setups in NASCAR 2. They might not be 100%, but that might give you a good baseline, so give that a try. The next thing you need to figure out is if you want to work on your qualifying setup or your race setup. If you want to work on your qualifying setup, one thing to remember is you only need to run good for 2 or 3 laps at a time. A few points that you might want to try is shortening your 4th gear. If you do that, that'll pick you up a little bit. You also might want to try raising your tire pressures up 2 or 3 pounds. This will get your buildup faster, and you'll go faster for the first couple laps. You won't have to worry about the right front tire getting in the red in 2 laps because that's all you're going to run anyway. So don't worry about tire temperatures as much as getting some tire pressure built up. And another thing you don't need to do is you don't need to worry about the wheel spin thinking you're going to heat up the tires and cheat on us, because that's fixed. You can't do it. And one thing you might want to remember is you want to save your comments as much as possible. If you run a good lap and you know what your settings are, then what you'll do is you'll go back to that, make an adjustment, and if you don't make it better, you can always go back to the setup you had that was the fastest. Then, if you do make something better, you can always go over and save over that, so you'll still have the faster lap. So always make good comments, save them as best that you remember of the setups, and that way you can have a good record of it. Now for a race setup, this will probably take you a little while longer. You need to go to your file and find out what's most comfortable for you. And now you need to work on that setup over many laps. You don't just need to run 2 or 3 laps like you did qualifying. You need to go out there and run several laps, check your tire temperatures, check your wear, and see what your lap times are doing. If they're falling off, if your tire pressures are getting, if your tire temperatures are getting too high, hey, you need to make an adjustment here. So I'd say you need to run at least half a fuel load off, and if your car is getting really, really bad handling, you need to come in and work on it. And another thing you might want to do is just work on one thing at a time. You don't need to work on several different things at one time. You need to work on one thing, make a run, one more thing, make a run. Because a lot of times when you make several changes at one time, then you forget where you are and it's hard to get back to that. And one thing NASCAR 2 has added is a comment field. And I tell you, this is something that helps me out a lot because whenever I have a fast lap, whenever I have a good setup for a short race, a long race, I put that in the comment field and I save it. That way I can always go back and figure out which setup worked the best, which setup was good for qualifying. You know, we take a lot of notes in Winston Cup racing. So let's go look at the race car. Okay, here we go. First thing I want to show you is the wedge bolt. Now, the wedge bolt does a couple things. It holds the rear of the race car up at a certain height that you have predetermined, plus you can adjust your wedge with it. Now, the crew chief, what he'll do is he'll put this in the back glass and screw down on it to put wedge in, which puts more load on the left rear and the right front. He takes wedge out, screws out on the jack bolt to take wedge out. Of course, this is all hooked with the spring, and the spring's very important. We adjust the race car with the spring a lot. The rear shocks are also very important because we fine-tune with those. The shock and the spring combinations work together. Another thing I want to show you is our track bar. The track bar has adjustments that are up and down, and it's also bolted to the frame and to the rear end housing. Now what they do is they hold the rear end straight to keep from turning left or right. But if our car is too tight, we'll want to raise the track bar. If the car is too loose, we'll lower the track bar. Another thing you might want to look at is our rear spoiler. This spoiler is set at a certain degree. Now to add more downforce, we'll move the spoiler straighter up to more degrees. But now that slows our car down the straightaway, but it helps it handle better through the corners. We'll lay it back to go faster down the straightaways, but it might not handle through the corners. This is something you just need to adjust for every racetrack. Another thing NASCAR has done is installed some timers on the back of our cars. Now these transmit times back to the pits to let us know what kind of lap times we're running in practice and during the race to let us know where we're running. This is a very important feature for us. And finally, I just want to tell you, this is our brake assembly, and this slows us down for those fast corners. Another thing we do is we build our race cars to NASCAR specifications. And we want to build them as light as we can, but we also know we have to weigh 3,400 pounds to meet the rules. So what we'll do is, after the car is built and weighed, we'll add lead ballast into the race car, in the frame rails, on the left and right, to meet NASCAR's requirements. And if we want to move weight forward or back, we'll take this lead, slide it forward, or pull it back for our weight for that racetrack. We also can move it from the left to the right to get our left side, right side weight percentages correct. Now let's look at some camber. Now let's take this tire for instance, and if this is our right front, let's say we're going to Bristol. We have 0 camber in it, and we go in the corner, the tire goes over like this. You won't get any grip over here and your car probably won't turn. So let's say for instance, let's put some negative camber in it to help. When you go in the corner, the tire rolls over, it's more flat. Now you've got more contact patch on the ground and the tire turns better. So work with this idea because more camber might be better, take some out might be better for some racetracks. Read your tire temperatures across, make sure you get this one a little hotter than this one and this one. Now let's go look at some setups. Now that you've seen the real race car, let's look at this setup that I've run at Bristol. Now this is the baseline setup that I started off at Bristol, run a few laps, and I got a few problems. Now let's take a look at it. The right rear temperature is hotter than the right front. The right front isn't even all the way across. Now there are several things that I could do to fix this problem, but let's start off with the right rear. Let's try to make this tire cooler. The first thing I want to do is change the comments in the comment field, and I'll type in the changes that I make so I'll save it. Now that we've changed the comments, let's change the right rear tire pressure. save. Now let's go back out and run. Yeah, I can already tell the difference. Now that we've run a few laps, let's go back to the car setup and see what we have to work on next. Okay, as you can tell, we've cooled the right rear temperature off a pretty good bit. That's helped out, and I can tell that was better. But now let's work on the right front. Now it's still uneven. Now let's see what we can do here. Let's put some more negative camber in it. Let's try that. Now we need to go up to the setup, to the comment page, and put our setup in. Now let's go run a few more laps, see how this works. Straight line burnout. Okay, so now we're going to run a few more laps, get the tire temperatures up again, look at it again, right? Now, if I had run a little longer, you notice that the inside of the right front tire isn't warm enough yet. So I would probably bump a couple of notches of negative camber in the right front to get that right front tire, don't forget, a little warmer than the outside, because that is a little faster, of that right front tire. But my temperatures are looking really good. Now, there's three basic things you want to look at. Your car's either pushing, your car's either loose, or your car's neutral. You want to try to get it neutral as long as it's drivable, and you fix a push problem and you fix a loose problem. So let's see how we fix those. Now, if your car's too loose, you might want to try this. You might want to lower the rear tire pressure. You might want to decrease the rear weight. If your car is too tight, you might want to do the opposite and lower the front tire pressures. Plus, you might want to soften the right front shock. And you want to increase the rear weight. Now, another thing you might want to see, if you have a tire that's too cool, you might want to decrease the pressure. Plus, you might want to stiffen that shock. And then if your tire is too hot, you might do the opposite. You might want to increase the pressure and soften that shock. And let me say something about wheel lock. That's very important. If your car is too tight, you'll probably want to put more wheel lock in it. And if your car is too loose, you want to do just the opposite. Another thing that I learned on wheel lock is the average that I will usually use is somewhere between 15 and 20. I'll use 12 or 13 at Talladega, something less, and 20 or so at short tracks and road courses. A lot more. That's just something that I found works for me, but give that a try. Another thing you might want to look at is the rear spoiler. If your car is a little loose getting in, you might apply more rear spoiler. If it's a little tight, hey, try to take some spoiler out. Of course, at Talladega, you'll want to run the least amount, which is 40, and everywhere else you want to bump it up from there, usually on the high side of that. Now let's take a look at the gears. Most of you have probably been practicing in automatic mode. If you've been practicing in manual, that's great, because you need to start practicing there. Because one thing I'm going to tell you is that it's going to help you in the long run. Now let me get to the high gear first. Fourth gear is what you'll want to run at the end of the straightaway, and you'll want to turn around 9,000 RPM, somewhere in that area, so you'll adjust your fourth gear to reach that maximum RPM. Now let me give you a little tip. For a lot of these short tracks and a lot of tracks that you slow down a lot at and you reach a low RPM, you'll want to shift gears. Now that will help increase your RPMs off the corner and pick up your lap times. So don't forget, manual shifting is going to be better. Now one thing to point out about the shocks in the game is that the shock and the spring are actually connected together. So whenever you have a higher percentage, that increases the load on that wheel. Whenever you have a lower percentage, that decreases the load on the wheel. So in turn, you have a higher temperature and a lower temperature. Now let's look at a few guidelines. The first thing you want to do is when you have a good setup is make sure that you conserve your tires. Because in a race, you'll see that you don't want to be making an extra pit stop because you won't be able to win. 2 is don't forget, make one change at a time. If you make one change at a time, you'll make your car setup better, which in turn makes your tires last longer. Number 3, use the comment field to keep track of your changes. Now, let's go racing. Okay, here we are at Pocono, and one thing I want to talk about here is a new feature that NASCAR 2 has, and that's the spotter. Okay, here we go. Now I want to go low, but I can't because there's a car there. The spotter says clear. Now I see the car in the rearview mirror. Now did you notice that the car wasn't there and then he showed up? He didn't just disappear, he was in my blind spot. That's where the spotter is very important. Okay, here we go. Now I know there's a car high, but I'm gonna get past him here. Okay, he was in my blind spot, but the spotter said clear, so I knew it was time to go. Now, there, you saw him again. I tell you, this is tricky. The rearview mirror here is very important. You gotta keep your eye on it, and you gotta listen to your spotter. There's 2 things that'll help you, the mirror and the spotter. Both of them will keep you out of trouble if you listen to them and you watch them. Hey, let me tell you something else. If you notice here at Pocono, I'm shifting to 4th, downshift to 3rd. One thing you need to do here is on manual shifting, and you need to be able to shift to 3rd in the corners, and you need a tall 3rd gear. But as you notice, I just shifted to 4th gear, and now I'm downshifting to 3rd. You need to really have a tall 3rd gear, one that'll carry some speed through these corners because they're really flat and they're really slow. And I shift through every corner because it's a lot faster. You can get a lot of speed off the corners. And shift again down the straightaways.
Still there. Clear, clear.
Now you have a good idea how spotters work. Well, let me tell you how important they are. We use them a lot in Winston Cup racing. They get us out of a jam. You know, the blind spot we showed you in the mirror, same thing in Winston Cup racing. We have blind spots just as well. So hey, that was a good tip. You need to listen to your spotter and watch your mirror. Hey, let's go to Martinsville, see how tough the opponents are there in NASCAR 2. Okay, now at the start of the race, man, I tell you what, here we go. Take off, in turn, oh, watch it. Man, there's cars slowing down everywhere. Man, these guys are fighting for position. You'd think this is the last lap. All right, here we go. Man, they know where I'm at because I think they're blocking me. still can't get down because there's cars. I mean, there's cars everywhere. All right, here we go. Let's try to set somebody up here. All right, there's a car below me. Now let me get down low. Let me get down low. All right, now I can make a pass. Okay, right here, at this point in time last year, NASCAR 1, I could have passed all these guys, but right now, I tell you, they're aggressive. Oh, okay, I got a little bump there. Oh, hey, watch it, what happened there? Man, now that's some aggressive drivers right there, I'm telling you. Hey, the spotter didn't even help me on that one. He couldn't help me because the guy came in so hard. That just shows you how aggressive NASCAR 2 is. Now that was some aggressive driving right there. Watch this. Now you see, in NASCAR 1, that guy would have let off, but not NASCAR 2. That just goes to show you how much more aggressive they are. You have to get up beside them all the way or they won't give. Now here's a tip that's going to be real useful. If you're not really good at some racetracks, you're still trying to figure out the line, where to let off and where to get on the gas, you can use this picture here to go back and look at a certain car, let's say the leader of the race. John Smith. Now, all you have to do is push play. You can see how fast he's going down the straightaway, where he lets off, how slow he gets in the corners, and you can kind of watch his line, figure it out. I think that's a tip that's going to be useful. Hey, let's go to Talladega and do some drafting. Okay, let's go. Now drafting here at Talladega is a very important key. What you'll do is you'll find a partner out there that might be a little quicker. You might want to slide in behind him and all of a sudden you're going as fast as he is. If you can stay with him, that's the key. Now right here, what we're going to do is try to set up this car. As we enter turn 3, you'll notice as close as I enter, my car drifts up a little bit. It's because it takes all the air off the front of the car and you need a lot of downforce on it. Now he slides up a little bit because he's behind the car in front of him. All right, now I've made my move. I've made the pass on him. I haven't cleared him yet, but I'm going to here in a second. Okay, he's still not clear, but I'm trying to get some draft off this car. Still not clear. Now I'm clear. Now I can get behind the car in front of me and travel in turn 1. You want to stay as close as you can to the car in front of you. You might even want to do this. Hey, a little bump draft don't hurt. Look at the speed. We're picking up some speed now. We're going to catch that pack in front of us. If you can't pick up a point to pass, follow this car close so you can catch the cars in front of you. You can see where drafting definitely picks up your speed. Now drafting at Talladega is the name of the game, isn't it? In order to win, you have to draft good. Hey, let's go to Dover for some pit strategies. Come on. Okay, here we are at Dover and we're fixing to make a pit stop. Now only in single player action can I pause the game and ask the crew chief for some changes. I thought about the changes I wanted to make. I paused the game. Now let's enter the pits and see what we can do.
Again, 4 tires all the way around this time. We're racing to 4.
And don't forget,
Road is closed.
keep your speed down on pit road because you don't want to get black flagged. Remember, in single player mode, you're always on the first pit.
Now, keep it on 4,000.
All right, let's look at some other things. If you had damage on your car and you needed to get out of the pits in a hurry, one thing you can do is hit the enter key and that will get you out before the pace car does. But remember, you gotta listen where the pace car is at. Give the crew a few seconds to get your car completed, get out, make another lap, come back in, work on it again, come back around. That way you won't lose a lap under race conditions. Another thing you might want to think about is, don't worry about fuel calculations because the crew chief's already doing it for you. I tell you, this game's really smart. Another thing you might want to think about too is, under yellow, put it in 4th gear, right around. Hey, you'll save some gas. It'll save it for the race later. Under those race conditions, you might win one. Hey, let's go again.
Go, 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 go. Watch your speed now. Keep it on 4,000. Keep it on 4,000. Watch your speed now. 4,000. The pace car is in turn 2. 4,000. Keep it on 4,000. Keep it on 4,000. The pace car is on the backstretch. Watch your speed now. Keep it on 4,000. 4,000. Okay, you're clear of pit lane.
Now that we've learned how to make some left-hand turns, let's try a road course for a change. I tell you, these are a lot of fun. Takes a little bit of patience. So let's go try Watkins Glen. Road courses are a lot of fun, but they take some patience. Anytime you see numbers on the left-hand side, that usually means there's a right-hand turn up ahead. So don't forget that. You gotta keep looking all the way around you.
Still there. Still there. Clear, clear. You've got a call on the left side. Still there. Keep to the right.
A spotter's real important here because there's cars on both sides of you sometimes. I tell you, one of the best places to pass is at the end of a long straightaway.
You've got a slow car in here.
This is definitely a place where shifting manual helps out a lot. You might want to practice with automatic for a while, but make sure you go to manual because that'll help your speeds out quite a bit.
Car on the left. Clear. Clear on the left.
Braking points are critical getting in the corners because you can't go too far. You need to get on the brake just right, get back on the gas so you can get some speed off the corners.
Right. Keep to the right. Stay on the right. Still there. Still there. Clear on the left.
Now don't forget, the key to good road course racing is being real consistent. And you gotta really look far ahead to set up your guy to pass.
Car on the left. Clear. Clear on the left. You've got a car on the left side. Clear on the left.
If you can't remember where you're at, if the brake marker's on the left, the turn's gonna be to the right, or vice versa. So don't forget that.
There's a clear in the inner loop. Clear. There's an accident in the inner loop.
It's a good thing to experiment with tight gear ratios because you need a lot of acceleration off the corners.
You've got a car over on your right. Keep to the left. Still there.
You want to keep as much speed in the corner as possible. That way you can get a good acceleration off the
Still
corner.
there. Clear.
You need to stay as low as you can off the corner because that helps out quite a bit.
Still there. Clear on the left.
Also, don't forget, this is probably one of the most fun places to run on a road course. But like I said, you got to be real
Stay on
smooth.
the left. Clear on the left. You're now in the top 10.
When you get to a car, just don't pass him. Make sure you set him up real well so that you can make a clear pass and get by him before the next corner.
You've got a car on your left side. Car on the right. Clear on the left. Clear on the left. You're now in the top 10. That's the way to hustle. Keep digging.
Now that we've talked about computer racing, let me give you another element. People racing. Yes, multiplayer racing. Now this is something that NASCAR 2 really thrives on. You're going to like this. When you get into multiplayer, you can race other people. But let me tell you, there's a few things you want to keep in mind. You got to be courteous. If you have an accident or spin out on the racetrack, stay below the white line. Trust me, you'll make a lot of friends like this. When you get through with an accident, pull back on the racetrack. After you get past up to speed, get going a little bit. Try to be courteous to the other drivers. It'll pay off in the long run. Also, let me tell you this. Don't follow too close under yellow. Because, hey, if that guy in front of you wrecks, you're going to be in it too. So be careful there. Also keep in mind, when you exit out of the pits, stay below the white line so you get off turn 2. Then blend in on the back straightaway where you got plenty of time to get up some speed. That'll prevent some accidents. If you hear a spotter call out an accident, listen to him. He knows what he's talking about. He'll drive you through that accident because it's in front of you and you might now be able to see it. So listen to that spotter. And finally, when you're racing other people, let me tell you, they're less forgiving than the computer that you've been racing. So remember, in order to be like a race car driver, you got to act like a race car driver. So be tough, get out there and go fast, but be smart.
Are you still playing this game? Did you forget we're supposed to meet your parents for dinner?
Just give me 5 more minutes.
Hurry up.
That might buy me enough time to beat her track record.